Okay, welcome back to another pickup vid. First pickup vid for a long time. As per usual, I'm trying to think of an excuse. I haven't got one. Laziness. Absolute sheer laziness. So yeah, there's quite a few games here, and there's a couple of peripherals. One's kind of a handheld, but it's sort of a peripheral as well. You'll see what I mean when I get to that. It's more of an upgrade of something that I bought a year or two ago, and I think I did feature that on a pickups vid. But this is a different version of it, and one which I prefer, so that's why I got it. So let's start off with the Commodore Amiga, and as ever, there's a couple of stories, not so much about this particular one, but maybe a game or two after. But I'll come to that when I come to it. So, first up is a game called Treasure Trap. Every time I say Treasure Trap, it feels like I'm saying sausages. Treasure Trap. So yeah, this is a game which is quite uncommon actually, to be honest. Let's do the old spine things, and of course we'll show you the back that you can't see, but I'll put some screenshots up anyway. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. You can work it out a little bit, but I'll definitely put some screenshots up as per usual. So yeah, it's basically an isometric puzzle game of sorts. So yes, it's based underwater. You're on a shipwreck basically, and you've got to go around and you've got to collect gold bars, and some of them are well concealed, they're hidden away. And you've kind of got to move furniture, move things around underwater to climb on top of things to access the gold bars, and to move things out of the way, that kind of stuff. There's fish and sharks, jellyfish that'll try and stop you and attack you, and but it's challenging, it's pretty good. It's a 3D kind of, again, as I showed a minute ago, it's a 3D sort of isometric view in a similar vein to something like Head Over Heels, if anyone remembers that from back in the 80s. Or maybe something more slightly modern, although not really that modern, late 80s, early 90s, Cadaver, by the Bitmap Brothers, wasn't it, Cadaver, I think? So, yeah, something like that. So if you like that, you might be at home with something like this. Graphically, it's very good, it still looks impressive. The sound, the music's pretty good, as you'd expect, really, from an Amiga game. So it also came out on the Atari ST. Now, the funny thing about this game is that this is the American version. I don't know if you can see, nope, be on that side. It says there, win a real gold nugget, a $500 value. And then right on the bottom as well, literally right at the bottom down, it says Baltimore, if you can see that. So, yeah, it's an American version. And the reason why that's funny, although maybe not literally, is that I remember going back a few months, I was speaking to Cine Steve, and Cine Steve said to me, he said, you know, can you think of any, or what's your favourite, something along those lines, what's your favourite, like, American Amiga box art? And I remember answering it going, well, they all kind of look the same. There's one or two which are different. And then no sooner do I say that on vid, then I start to notice hundreds of games which are different. You know, like God springs to mind, for example. You know, the artwork in America, I think it's like a blue spine, and the front cover's it's just rubbish. Not a patch on the UK or PAL European one. And there's so many now that I've started to notice. Why that's the case, I don't know. Why is there different artwork for America and the UK or Europe? It doesn't make sense. It's the same kind of demographic, it's the same audience, same target market audience. I don't get it. Unless it's just different people in marketing, you know, companies thinking, well, maybe they want to try and market it towards different people or having a different kind of view. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's different companies were hiding in different countries and therefore different artists wanted to do their own thing, put their own individual stamp on it. Who knows? But it's a little bit odd. So yeah, now, despite just saying that about different artwork, I actually think it's the same for this particular game. What there may be a slight difference with, this is pointless information, is I think the colour to the UK European version might be slightly, see how this is almost a very grey. It might be more of an aqua, I think, in the UK, or at least it was from the picture that I saw, unless it was just the angle or the light maybe affected that. So anyway, pointless little story. So it's a decent game, I quite like it. The thing about this is I had wanted this for a long time, but it's quite uncommon. Now, don't confuse uncommon with really expensive. That's not always how it works. But this game is, it doesn't appear very often at all. It's quite hard to get. Like, let's say there's 5 of you right now watching this who really want to get it. Well, you're not going to see 5 copies on eBay. Wait and see, you will now, after I've said that. But there's not many copies crop up, so it could be hard to get. The thing about this, I bought it from an American seller, as you might imagine, being an American version. And I bought from him before. I'll show you that game in a second. Just because it's relevant. I have showed this next game before on a previous vid, like a vlog, but because it's relevant, same seller, I'll talk about it very briefly. But yeah, so I was looking on eBay.com, just looking down at Amiga items, type Amiga into the search bar, and of course everything comes up, things to do with like cars and you know, music, anything which just use the word Amiga in. I thought, bloody hell. Okay, so I'll reset that search, or retune it, refine it, and just into like your computer stuff. And then it had, you know, obviously all the Amiga computers and peripherals, joysticks, mice, cables, leads, monitors, and games. And as I was scrolling down, I noticed this one. So I wasn't even specifically looking for it, but I'd been meaning to, because I saw some gameplay, like, I don't know, probably a year ago maybe, and I'd made a mental note, oh, I'm going to get that in the future. But of course, knowing me, I'd completely forgotten about it. And so just by chance, I was scrolling down this list and I saw it, and I thought, I remember that, Treasure Trap. So it was on a buy it now, and it was under $10, including shipping. There was even a best offer. But because I bought from this seller before, as I'm going to explain again in a second, and because it was really cheap anyway, I think $8.99, so $9 is about £6-7 quid, including postage. And I thought, I can't be bothered. That's a good price for me. So I just bought it, and it's in brilliant condition. All the corners are really, really tidy. The only slight downside, and this is not a complaint at all, is you can see the sticker there, the Amiga is starting to sort of peel away, and the back there, that barcode is sort of greyed out and yellowed a little bit. And this front sticker on the front, which is like a shop sticker which someone has put on, a shop called Software Etc., with the same kind of colour scheme as Game in the UK. If Game is even still going, I have no idea. So yeah, this is starting to come away a little bit there, as you can see. Now, I did contemplate maybe removing that, but it's probably going to ruin it, and so I'm not going to. And $40 as well, if you can see that. $39.95, $40, again being about 35 quid. So the main reason why I'm going to show this next game, which I bought from this same seller, it's just that it connects to this whole thing of stickers being peeling and all that kind of stuff. So if I stick that there. So yeah, so if anyone remembers, it's probably gone back a few months, I bought from that same seller this game. It's called Apprentice. Again, also on the Amiga. Rainbow Arts down there. Always makes me think of Turrican. They made so much more, but I always think of that game. So this is a really good game. This is another one which is actually quite uncommon. Although I did notice one copy sold quite recently in the UK for 25 quid. It might have been a buy it now, I'm not sure. But even then, 25 quid, it's not cheap, is it? Well, it's not massively expensive. But just for a random game, 25 quid, it's a reasonable price. But I was surprised, it usually goes for a lot more. So, yeah, the relevance to this game, the previous seller, is you'll see there on the front, you can't miss it. Although I managed to miss it when I bought the game. I didn't even see it, to be honest. And then when the game arrived, I've told this story before, but when the game arrived, I opened it up and I was like, oh, no, I'm not having that. And I was going to go straight onto it. Well, in fact, I did. I went straight onto eBay and I started to type a message to the seller. And I was like, mate, you can't be sending me this. But I thought, you know what? Just before I send this message, let me check the auction in case I've got it wrong, which obviously never happens. But it did happen on this occasion, because when I clicked on the auction, it very clearly showed, like even a close-up of the game with the sticker. And where is it? You can't do it again because the mirrored reflection stuff. So, and it was completely my fault. I just didn't see it first time round. So I obviously deleted that message, but didn't send it in the end, and left him good feedback. He's a good seller, to be honest, and clearly I've gone on and bought from him again. So yeah, this is a really good game. So just be careful whenever you buy things in the future. You know, don't do what I did and just look at half of it and think, oh, I'll get that. And then when it arrives, find out there's something wrong with it. Apart from that, it's in brilliant nick. Again, corners are really tight, really tidy, really good condition. It's a really good game as well. Maybe one day, if I ever when I start doing gameplay vids, I'll be sure to start covering Amiga stuff. And just 16-bit era in general, really, Mega Drive and SNES. It's been years since I've done a SNES gameplay. I did 3 for games I had on the American SNES, which is Knights of the Round, Realm, and Demon's Crest. I don't think I've done one since. I've done 1 or 2 Amiga ones. I did Leander, I know that, and Warzone, but even that was about 4 or 5 years ago. Shocking. So, yeah, maybe gameplay vids in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. Time will tell. So, really pleased to get this. But this annoys me so much to the point that I'm even thinking of getting a sticker off another box, if I can maybe, carefully tear it off and putting it over that. It just annoys me, because another version is going to cost me at least 25 quid, probably more, because as I say, I think that one that sold the other day went for a bit of a bargain, to be honest. So, sticking to the 16-bit era, and, oh, God, right. Not so much this game, but there's a bit of a story I'll come to in a minute. So this game and the next one that I'm going to show you, both, again, came from the same seller, a seller I've bought from before, a really nice guy, no doubts whatsoever, very friendly, very affable, very down-to-earth. He actually works for a big gaming company. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're a really big one. They make modern games that used to make old ones as well. If I were to say them, you'd know them, without question. And since he told me that, because I first bought from him about a year ago, but ever since finding out that he works for this big company and that he's working on modern games, I've been probing him, trying to get information about what games he's working on. And he's not told me exactly, but he has revealed a few things that maybe he shouldn't have done. I've just got a real good way of like extracting information from people that they shouldn't be saying. I should be like a spy or something. I'd do a good job, I think. But anyway, so yeah, I bought this game off him and I bought the next game off him. But here's the thing, right? I bought them in like early March and they only arrived 2 days ago. Unacceptable. And all during that time, he kept saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I'll send them soon. I've just been really busy with his job, working on games and all that kind of stuff. And, but it's just ridiculous. I bought from him before, and even then, going back like last year, he was very, very slow. We're talking about 3 weeks to send. But this time it's been 2 months. But what he did say, to be fair, he did say, sorry, Alex, for messing you around. I've been really busy, blah, blah, blah. He says, but what I will do is I'll figure out, I'll find out a couple of Brucey bonuses, as Marcus Xfile2708 used to say, and I'll include them free of charge, just as my way of saying, you know, sorry and thanks, you know, and you can have these and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And because I bought off him before and all that kind of thing. So I said to him in the email, I said, well, you don't have to, well, even though he kind of did. But I said, no, you don't have to do that. But if you do, thank you. You know, I appreciate that. And they've arrived, and you'll see them in a minute. And I'm, especially with one of them, it's just like, well, was it worth it, really? You'll probably say it's a thought that counts, and is it really when you see them? But more of that in a second. But the two games I really, really wanted, and I had to wait 2 months to arrive, the first one up is Pang. So it was worth the wait. This is a really good game. Now, technically speaking, this is for the Atari ST. Anyone may remember that I really love my ST. I had an ST hang on a minute, maybe 3 years or so before I had an Amiga. So I love the Atari ST, but of course I love the Amiga too. But the great thing, as I've said before, about Amiga and Atari ST boxes is that they are exactly the same, literally. It's the same box, it's the same company who made them, it's the same shape, it's the same writing, the same screenshots. Everything is the same, apart from a sticker, which will clearly say Atari ST or Amiga, which could be sometimes on the bottom, or the top, the sides, the back, the front, or on occasions it would be imprinted into the cardboard. But apart from that, it's the same game. So what I always do, if I get the Atari ST version, I can play it on my ST, so that's handy, of course, and it's maybe nostalgic, because I possibly could have had it first on the ST before I got the Amiga. And then what I'll do is I'll get a ROM of the game, I'll copy it onto a blank disc via my Amiga 600, and then put the blank disc into the ST box, and voila, I've got a complete Amiga version. Brilliant. And an ST one. So, double your money. Brilliant. So, the game Pang, yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows this. You know, bursting the balloons, basically. It's a very simple, straightforward, yet highly addictive game. And I love it on all sorts of systems. It's a really good game on the Amstrad GX4000. One of the few games that were not just good, but one of the few games on the GX4000. But for me, I've got to say, just very quickly, speaking of the GX4000, the best game on that system, the very short-lived system, which I got in 1990, Christmas of 1990, duped into buying it by Amstrad Action magazine, thank you very much. I was all set to get an Amiga. I told my mum and dad, can I have an Amiga please? Christmas 1990, I'm ready for it. I did have the Amstrad. I'm ready to move on to the 16-bit era with the mighty Commodore Amiga. And, but yeah, then Amstrad Action, because I had an Amstrad at the time, they were saying, oh, you've got to get it. The GX4000 is going to be brilliant. It's going to rival the Mega Drive, which was just about to come out. And yeah, this is going to be the next best thing since sliced bread, or since the Amstrad. And it was about 2 weeks before Christmas. I've told this story before on my Christmas anecdote kind of memories vids, if you ever watched those from 2 or 3 years back. 2 weeks before Christmas, I went up to my dad and I went, "Oh, Dad, so I'm thinking about getting not getting the Amiga." And he was like, "Oh, well, what do you want instead?" I was like, "The Amstrad, the GX4000, this new system that's just come out." And he went, "How much is it?" And I went, like, 99 quid. I think it was £100, wasn't it, when it came out? Something like that, 120 quid maybe. It was really cheap in comparison. Remember, the Amiga was about 400 quid. And I remember my dad just going, "Oh, yeah, good idea. Great. Yes, the Amstrad's a brilliant idea. It's meant to be really good. It's going to be a really good system." Because all he was thinking of course, was not having to spend 400 quid and instead spending 100. So his eyes lit up. He couldn't believe it. He thought it was literally Christmas. Well, which it was, I guess. Christmas had come early, 2 weeks early to him. So I saved him and my mum, 300 quid by foolishly getting an Amstrad GX4000. But here's the thing, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's memories. I did actually like the GX4000. I really did. The game Burning Rubber, which came with it, was and is still a really good game. Honestly, it plays well, it looks good, it sounds good. It's a very good game. Navy SEALs, like I say, is amazing. For me, that's the best game on the system, without question. But then you've got Pang, you've got, well, that's about it really. Robocop, I think, Robocop 2 was it? Yeah, Robocop 2, that was a decent version. But most of the games that came out were basically straight ports from what was out already on the Amstrad. And I already had the Amstrad, so I had those games on disc and cassette. So why was I going to pay 25 quid to get the cartridge version, which in some cases had 0 improvements, and in others, very marginal. So yeah, the GX4000 was an absolute disaster, and within months or weeks, they were selling them off for like 50 quid. I remember going in actually to Dixon's with my dad, not long after Christmas, and they were selling them off. And we sort of had a laugh about it. I wasn't laughing about it because I could have had a bloody Amiga. I had to wait years. Well, I got an ST the next year, but then I had to wait years to get 3 to get an Amiga. Ridiculous. So anyway, so Pang, really, really pleased to get it. It's a brilliant game. I'm sure you're all aware of it. And it can also be quite an expensive one. So that is that. So from that same seller, I also got this game. Now, speaking of the Amstrad, so straight away I've just revealed what it is. It's a game for the Amstrad CPC. The first Amstrad game that I've bought, I think, for 30 years. I'm trying to think if there's one I bought before. I don't think there is. Now, I'm lucky in a sense, even though they're still in the UK at my mum's house, probably in the loft or in the cupboard or wherever. But I still have pretty much, if not all my original boxed Amstrad stuff. Must be about, there's not that many, about 50 maybe. Boxed tapes, boxed cassettes, still got them all. But this is one which I think I borrowed from a friend back in the day. I don't know who, it might have been Rob, not sure. But even whoever it was from, it doesn't matter. The point is I just remember it's very nostalgic. I remember seeing this poster, when you'd look in the magazines and it'd have like a full page kind of spread advertising games. And I'd see this in like Amstrad Action, C&VG, friends who had Commodore 64s, so Zap magazine or Your Sinclair and all that kind of stuff, if they had the Spectrums. And it's so nostalgic. The artwork's brilliant. I know, I'll show you in a second, just keep your skin on. And but the game itself isn't very good. It's the third in a trilogy. The franchise, I don't think, has been brought back to life since this game. So this game kind of killed it in a way. And that game is, long bloody build-up, like I say, it's Renegade 3, the final chapter. And quite literally, because like I said, there's not been one since. So look at the artwork. It's absolutely amazing. With the Kung Fu action going on there, kicking mummies in the face, you've got the robots there, and you've got the cavemen above him. That Imagine logo, look at that isometric look, brilliant. And the wording, Amstrad CPC 464, 664, 6128 disc. Now I had the 6128, got my Amstrad Christmas 86 when I was very young, and then it was probably around about 88 or 89, there's the disc as well. I'm so nostalgic holding these things. I got an additional cassette recorder in, I think it was 88, maybe 89. Because of course disc games were very expensive for the most part, and cassette games you could just pick them up really cheap. The budget games that you'd see at like petrol stations, service stations on the motorway and stuff, they were like 1 and 2 quid, £1.99 usually, wasn't it? And even though most of them were utterly dreadful, it was still at that age you wanted to buy new games. So if you get one for a couple of quid, like pocket money kind of stuff, it was great. So I very quickly, 2 years after getting an Amstrad, realised, yeah, discs are great. You can store more on it. The games load much quicker naturally. and sometimes the disc versions were better, they were more enhanced. But ultimately, I did want a cassette. So yeah, Christmas '88, Christmas '89 is a bit of a stocking filler to my main present, which is like a mountain bike or something. One of the things I got was a tape recorder, and I just loved it, absolutely loved it. So so I did play cassette games eventually. But yeah, this game is really, really good. Now, sorry, let me take that back. The memories are really, really good. The game is anything but really, really good, which is a shame because Renegade and Target Renegade were fantastic on all systems, Spectrum, Commodore 64 and Amstrad. Amstrad's the best, of course. Spectrum and Commodore 64 owners will never tell you that, will never accept it. But the Amstrad, alright, the music wasn't as good as the Commodore 64, but the graphics were far superior, bigger colour palettes, more colours on screen at once. The Amstrad was the best 8-bit computer. Commodore 64 Spectrum fans, they never want to admit it. Here's my little theory on that. It's that the Amstrad was much more expensive than the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum. And initially, you needed a monitor, so extra expense, like 100 or 200 quid, to get the monitor. And it was only latterly that Amstrad released the modulator, so you could connect it to a normal telly. But by that time, it was pushing 1990, if not 1990, and many people had started to move, or at least think about moving to the ST and the Amiga. And then, of course, latterly the consoles as well, SNES and Mega Drive, of course. So I think without question, I think the Amstrad was the third best in terms of sales, but I knew loads of people who had them. It's not like no one had them, but it just, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just my annoyance or paranoia all these years later still. But whenever people talk about the Spectrum and the Commodore 64, a lot of people seldom mention the Amstrad. It's like, why? It was massive. Maybe it wasn't as big as the C64 and the Spectrum, but it was there. It was in the shops. It was relevant. I don't get it. But like I said, I think it was because it was so expensive that most people had the Commodore 64 and the Spectrum. I think, what's the phrase? Peasants? Let's move on. That's angered loads of people. The playground rivalry from the 80s has just come hurtling back into 2019. So, but listen, don't get me wrong. I loved playing on my friends' Spectrums and Commodore 64s. I really did. Massive nostalgia. It's just that the Amstrad was better. Just deal with it, man. Deal with it. There we go. Shouldn't have said that. So yeah, I'm really pleased to get it, but because it's very, very nostalgic. The artwork's brilliant. The game sadly isn't. But I would like to see a bit of a reboot. Maybe bring in, Target Renegade, or well, that as well. I guess maybe all of them. Remake Renegade 3, the final chapter. I think the main reason why the gameplay went wrong, I should say as well that the critics loved it, bizarrely, but all the people out there, they just didn't really like it, and they were right. The people are always right, ultimately. And yeah, it's not very good. I think the main reason why is because in Renegade and Target Renegade, it very much revolved around fighting in like the underground tube stations and park benches and streets, and you've got like your knives and your nunchuckers or whatever you call them, all those kind of weapons, and whereas the Renegade 3, the one I've just bought, the final chapter, that shifted the whole story and the plot, and everything changed because it involved time travelling, as it shows on the front. Again, I'll show it. It's screenshots again as per usual up as well. You've got your robots on there, you've got your mummies. It's obviously not realistic. So basically, I think a lot of people didn't like that. It moved away from reality, and it gave you a very short amount of time. I think it's like 6 minutes to move from one world to the other, so you've kind of constantly got to be on the move. So it's quite a short game. Graphically, it's not very impressive, and it's just the whole plot, really. Dinosaurs, for example, are on the first level. It's just rubbish. But nostalgically, I'm fond of it, and sometimes often nostalgia is a very powerful thing, as I can testify to, and I'm sure a lot of you can as well. We can all relate to that. So it is what it is. It's not a great game, but I'm really pleased to have it. Now, from that same seller, these things are going to fall down. I think they will. Yeah, of course they are. Let's just move these over here. Right, so from that very same seller, remember, because they took so long to send me the games, they sent me 2 bonuses. So as appreciative as I am, and I am, one of them in particular, it's just like, why bother? I didn't say that to him, obviously. But that game is Der Clow. So, in case you haven't already figured it out, there's another clue, so to speak, because the English version is The Clue. You might see it's in German. Now, what bloody use is that to me? So, the English version of this game is called The Clue. Although I think if we're going to be literal, that's not a literal translation in German, because the is das, I think. I think der Clow, a more appropriate kind of translation, or slightly more accurate one, is the big sting, or the sting, or something like that. If we want to be literal, I think that's more of the German version. But in English, like I say, the PAL version is called The Clue. It's basically, as you may be able to tell and decipher from the bottom there, maybe not actually, so again, screenshots. It's just basically a point-and-click and adventure game. Now, if there's an option to play this game in English on the menu screen, I've not yet tried it, then I may keep it, but I may not, because it's just the title, the spine, the cloud. It doesn't mean anything. Come on. Seriously, so why did he send this? I know you may be watching this thinking, Alex, come on, mate, it's a freebie. But still, why bother? Why bother sending something which is almost unplayable? Now, I do speak a little bit of German. My grandma on my mum's side is German. Well, was. She died when I was like 1. Sad, obviously, but so I never got to know her. But, she's from like the Dortmund area, and all her family are from like the Bremen area. So I speak a little bit of German, growing up. Stuff that my grandma passed down to my mum, like little words here and there. I always remember, like I saying, like Frühstück for breakfast and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously my mum doesn't speak fluent German, but just a little bit. And so she passed that down to me, just little words here and there. And so I always picked up on it. And then I learned German and French at school. So I can speak a little bit, but not enough to be, and I can string a few sentences together, probably better in German than English, to be honest, half the time. But not enough to play a game, seriously. So there's one German I know, actually, on YouTube, and that's Matthias. Probably not watching this because Matthias hasn't made a vid for ages. But Matthias, if you are watching this, and I think you've got an Amiga, haven't you? If you want this, you can have it, because this to me is pretty useless. Not that I'm passing off my rubbish onto other people. Well, kind of am, really. But it's no good to me, really. So maybe, if Matthias doesn't want it, probably not watching this, maybe I'll just put it in a bundle and get rid of it in the future. It's not one for the collection. It's pointless. And then the other game that it gave me, which is free, so again, lovely gesture, but okay. It's in great condition, as is the Clow, actually. It's in good condition. It's just utterly redundant on every level. But the other game is, Birds of Prey. So it's a flight sim. Look at that as well. Electronic Arts. How the Mighty Have Fallen. Unbelievable. Or were they even mighty back then? Probably not. So it still looks pretty good, albeit quite basic, yet technically impressive still. It really does. I love the advert as well at the front there. Fly 40 planes. These days, you'd get maybe 5, and the rest will be a £5 each with DLC. So, but back then, of course, you just got it all as part of the game. Whinging, unbelievable. But yeah, really good condition, and I'm actually not too disappointed with this. I'm quite pleased with it. It's not going to be something I'm going to be playing anytime soon, because flight sims are very, very complicated, but and complex. Usually they come with like an overlay you'd put on your Amiga or your ST or PC for that matter, and every button kind of does something. And yeah, it can be a little bit maybe too complex, but I couldn't really appreciate them as a kid. But maybe now I may try and get into them, but no promises. We'll see. Game on the PlayStation 1, it's Tomb Raider. And it's a classic, really, Tomb Raider, you've got to say, with, like I say, the double jewel cases here. Now, the annoying thing about this is that when the seller sent it, you can probably see there, he sent it in a jiffy bag, no bubble wrap around it, and of course it cracked. And it means that if you just open it back to front, if I can do it here, it just comes off. Because the hinges, as I just showed you at the bottom, have been broken. And it's like, you absolute... Seriously. I mean, how difficult is it just to... I'll tell you what, it's difficult to put this bloody thing back together. There we go, I did it. How difficult is it just to use some logic and put some bubble wrap around it because of the plastic case? They're so fragile. But anyway, so I put the game on, and I tell you what, initially it didn't even work. I had to like kind of rub it like several times, or wipe it with like a bit of my sleeve essentially. And it did work eventually, but I thought, to begin with, it wasn't gonna. So that was a double whammy. That was gonna get back to the seller. Not just does it not work, but the case is knackered as well, so refund please. But anyway, I can't be bothered. It was quite cheap. So yeah, like $8 or something, whatever. About 4 or 5 quid including shipping. I'm happy to do that. And it was from an American seller as well, so I didn't have to wait 2 weeks. for it to arrive. Although, North American sellers, 2 months to arrive, as I just explained with the other games. So I put this game on now, like a lot of people say, absolutely, without question, it has aged big time. Not just aesthetically when you look at it, but also the playability-wise, it's quite clunky. I found that trying to time your jumps, that was quite difficult. Not even so much the timing, but judging your jumps, whereabouts you jump into, what ledges, that was quite difficult at times. Doing things that you didn't really do, like it would do things where I didn't press that button. It's like, I didn't do that, why is the game doing it? But, you know, give it like half an hour, and like many older games, whatever the era, 16-bit, 32-bit, whatever it may be, yeah, initially it hits you, the graphics they really do, but you soon acclimatise to it, you soon get immersed within like maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour maybe, and you get to grips with the controls, you accept it for what it is. It's an old game after all, so you shouldn't compare it to new stuff. Initially you do because you're putting it on and you're experiencing it, but like I say, you soon acclimatise to it and start forgiving it for what it is and accepting it for what it is too. So yeah, it is a bit of a classic. It's definitely aged, there's no doubt about it, but I am pleased to have it nonetheless. That's too much. So next up is a game on the Mega Drive. Again, sticking to the PAL thing despite being in America. I'd love to try buying a Genesis game. I mean, I have done before, but I'd love to try again with this fresh kind of approach that I've got with gaming, of just enjoying it that little bit more than what I had done maybe last year or so. So I might buy a Genesis game, I'm going to try and get into it, but in all honesty, I think I'm going to stick to the PAL because it's nostalgia, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Now this game, much like Renegade 3, isn't meant to be very good, but I wanted to get it and I wanted to experience it myself. And I don't mind it, it's not brilliant, it definitely isn't as good as the first game, and it's not as good as the true sequel, which came out on the PS1, but nonetheless, it's Strider 2. As I say, on the Sega Mega Drive, there's a bit of spine action for you, and again, of course, the obligatory kind of back view of it, and I guess we may as well do a boxed and complete, in really nice condition actually, probably because a lot of people don't like it, so they didn't really play it, so it's still in mint condition. So yeah, I think a lot of people don't like it because it wasn't made by Capcom. I can't remember who made it. I mean, I know it's got US Gold on there, but are they the developers or the publishers? I can't remember. So a different team made it, Strider 2, than made Strider. And also the main character is a different guy. So a lot of people didn't like that for continuity reasons. And there's a few gameplay aspects as well, which have changed and a lot of people didn't like. But for me, it's okay. Now, I've not played the first Strider for many, many years, and I'm going to get it very soon, actually. I say very soon, sooner or later. And I'll be able to go back and play it and refamiliarise myself with it, and then make a direct comparison, rather than taking someone else's word for it and see what I think. And when I do, I'll let you know. But yeah, I thought it was all right. I do think it is quite clunky, and there's almost an element of slowdown in places, and I wasn't keen on that. So I can see where people are coming from, the ones who don't particularly like it. It's not amazing, but I actually thought it was all right, to be honest. I've not finished it. I mean, come on, give me a break. It's a 16-bit game. They're bloody rock hard. Ask me again in 35 years, and I may have done. Probably still wouldn't have done. So that's that. And then we've got 3 games and a couple of peripherals, which I'll show right at the end, kind of. One of them anyway. But the 3 games I'm going to quickly show, I'm not going to elaborate too much on them, because the thing is, with this first game, I talked about it in the What I'm Currently Playing segment of my last vlog, when was that, in March or April time? So if you want to know more about it, please watch that vlog. There's timestamps in the description box so you can go straight to it. And then the other 2, I've just talked about, or will be talking about, in my upcoming vlog. So yeah, you can find out more information there if you want it. So there's no point going into massive detail. So just very, very quickly, we've got Split Second. Did I say these are all on the 360? Can't remember. Split Second, so basically kind of a cross between a Burnout and a Ridge Racer, if you like, with a sort of an element of Mario Kart, but not really. Certainly the first 2 games that I mentioned, though. Yeah, Fast and Furious. Oh, I guess it's kind of like that, the Fast and the Furious, if you like that. Yeah, but Fast and Furious gameplay and high adrenaline stuff. Very, yeah, quite exhilarating. Lots of explosions going off, a little bit melodramatic and over the top, but nonetheless, I do quite like it. I've been wanting to get that for so many years. When did it come out? Let's have a look. 2000, and of course it doesn't say. It literally doesn't say. I wonder if it says on the disc. 2010. So yeah, I've been wanting to get it since then. But again, going back to that thing, I've just had so many games back then, and I got burnt out a little bit, again, to use that phrase. And then we've got Time Shift, which is a first-person shooter with an element of open world kind of gameplay to it, but not really. So yeah, a science fiction kind of time-traveling game, and lots of decent weapons in there, and it's very gory, very, very violent, and a very early game as well. 2007. It's at that kind of weird point where the graphics look kind of sort of like old gen, like original Xbox and PS2, but slightly souped up because it was the new system was on the market, the Xbox 360 and the PS3. So it just looks marginally better than than 2 gens ago, I guess. But nonetheless, it's quite fun. A little bit kind of in places, gameplay-wise, not so much clunky, but a little bit, I don't know, it's almost this feeling of at times like you're walking on air when you're moving around and stuff as well. But it's pretty good. It's a cheap and cheerful game. I think they planned a sequel for it, but it never came out, and I'm guessing that's because the game didn't really sell. So it's really cheap. If you see it for 2, 3, 4 quid or something, or $5, $6, I'd say give it a go. Give it a try, see what you think of it, and you might like it. Don't expect anything amazing, but it's a laugh. It's quite fun. There's a couple of weapons in particular which are very, very satisfying to use. The main one being like a flamethrower, which I'll talk about that more in the vlog if you watch it, and you should do. And then last but not least, another one I'll elaborate on in the vlog, and it's Alan Wake, a game which I did have back in the day when I had loads of games and didn't play them, and just picked it up again recently, and I played it, and it's so good. It really is very, very good, and but a lot, not necessarily scarier, but a lot more tense and spookier, creepier than I thought it would be. Kind of similar to like a Silent Hill, that kind of vibe. So yeah, I really like it. And another one where a sequel was planned, but it didn't really massively sell. It sold a fair few, a lot more than Time Shift, I'd be willing to guess, but not enough, I guess, to garner the funding for a sequel. But I think one is still planned eventually. So really, really good. Graphically, it's very good. This came out in 2010, so 3 years after Time Shift. But just those 3 years, that development, that time with the 360 to develop, that the developers had, got butchered that sentence, that extra time the developers had with the 360, they really kind of capitalized? Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. I'm really butchering this. That really paid dividends, and you can tell it's a massive leap up from Time Shift. So yeah, really good, plays well, and it's a good story, slightly confusing towards the end especially, but really good, and an Xbox 360 console exclusive. So if you want to play that game, I guess you've got to have a 360 or an Xbox One. I think it's backwards compatible. But definitely get it. Another one which is really, really cheap, so well worth your time and effort. And it's done in these episodic kind of content as well. So it's not like the story doesn't just pan out, just go from mission to mission. It's almost like a TV show. You know, it's a bit like, is it Quantum Break? The game, I think Remedy made that as well, didn't they? And Remedy make Alan Wake. So there's kind of elements to that. So it's a little bit maybe slightly pretentious, but it's a good game and you should check it out. And then last but not least, well, we've got 2 things here. We've got something which is an upgrade on a previous version I bought. It's called the Superboy SFC. And SFC standing for Famicom, i.e. the coloured buttons here, or of course like the PAL system for the Super Nintendo. Now, about a year or 2 ago, I bought and showed the standard version, which is like the American one, with the kind of purple buttons, different shades of purple, to replicate the American Super Nintendo. And I liked it, it was pretty good, but when this one became available late last year, and I've only just recently bought it, I just had to get it. Basically what this is, it's such an underrated bit of kit, it really is. I don't see anyone talking about this. It's a handheld Super Nintendo, essentially. It comes with leads that you can connect it to the television if you want. I've just noticed as well, Alan Wake as well in the background. I'm sure you noticed it ages ago. So yeah, it comes with leads so you can connect it to the television, or you can use it as a handheld, portably, take it outside, in the house, you charge it up, comes with a USB cable. You can connect the SNES controllers to the front as well, if you don't want to use the D-pad and the buttons. And yeah, it's just really, really good. It plays PAL games, American games, it plays Japanese games. So, which is great for me, being someone who loves the nostalgic aspect of playing PAL games, living in America. That's great for me. I don't have to worry about setting up the snares and all that kind of stuff. It's just really, really good. So, yeah, not enough people talk about it. And this modern version is basically, or it's just an upgraded version of the previous model. I think the sound has improved quite a lot, and one or two other features. Obviously, in terms of the design, it's the PAL stroke Famicom look to it, but it's basically just a very slight upgrade of the old one. But just the fact that it's PAL, or Famicom with PAL connections to it, made me want to get that instead. So got rid of the old one and got the new. Out with the old, in with the new. And then last but not least, I talked about Genesis before, how I really should be buying more Genesis games. And do you know what? I might try and test the water, and we'll see. For me, it's the red spines. I don't like red at the best of times, but you know, just having the red spines, it's not nostalgic. And it's the word Genesis, it means nothing to me. I like the blue spines, I like the, I just like the word Mega Drive. Obviously, it's just very, very nostalgic. So, yes, I think it's got to be Mega Drive going forward. That said, I might buy a few and test the water. And this also, bizarrely, is a Sega Genesis peripheral. But the Mega Drive one is exactly the same. And it's the arcade power stick. So I picked this up really cheap, including postage. It's about $15, which is just over a tenner. And it's a lovely, sturdy bit of kit. I won't get it out, but what I will do is what I usually do at the end of vids, because, you know, I've got to be like a hipster, I've got to keep up with the kids. I'll put like a montage and the music will be going on in the background, like it is, but it'll be a lot louder at the end of the vid, and you can see things in a little bit more detail. So it's a really sturdy bit of kit, and it brings back so many memories, because if you go back to like, what would have been, I think, about 1991, my cousin, my auntie and uncle, they moved out to America. And my uncle's job at the time, he was working for Sharp. If anyone's ever heard of them, they used to sponsor the United shirts. And they were just going out there for a year. It was just like a year out there. Might have been like an exchange with someone, or I don't know what. It was a long time ago. And even though it was family, it was my auntie and uncle, my cousin. So I didn't really ask. So anyway, they went out and they moved to Atlanta in Georgia, and they're only there a year, like I say. And when they came back around about 1991, I remember, this is the thing I can't quite remember, despite having a great nostalgic memory. I can't remember if my cousin brought back with him a Genesis, or whether they just got a Mega Drive as soon as they came back. It was just as the Mega Drive was released, so it could have been that, or it could have been the Genesis that he bought in America and brought back with him. And my cousin's like 5-6 years younger than me. So like 1991, I was only 12 or 13, so he was obviously very young at the time, much younger than me, hence being 5 or 6 years younger. But I vividly remember them bringing that round and me playing on it, and just, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was around about the time where I just got my ST, or I was just about to, there or thereabouts. And playing games, like, they had a big stack of games with him, the sport little bugger. He's got his own kids now, and he's spoiling them with PS4 games. But yeah, it's, what did he have? I can't remember them all, but I vividly remember playing things like Moonwalker, Altered Beast, Kid Chameleon, Dick Tracy, which I really loved because it felt so cool, like controlling the machine gun. It felt like you were firing one. Not that I had any real experience doing that, but you could smash the windows and stuff. It was just really good. I love doing that. And the impact when you were shooting the enemies, it just felt right. Sonic, he must have had Sonic. Yeah, in fact, he did have that one. I really liked that. And there's one or two others, and I just absolutely loved playing on this Mega Drive or Genesis. And I remember, I think maybe it was the second or third time that they brought it down when they came. They spent like a weekend with us, because, you know, they didn't live in the same town as us. We were down south at this point, living in Bournemouth neck of the woods. And but yeah, I remember it was the second or third time where he brought his Mega Drive or Genesis down with him. And I remember saying to him, I've got to borrow this. Can I borrow it, please? Just until you come down next time, which is like a month away. And being like the older cousin, I kind of manipulated him into saying yes. I don't know what I lent him. It might have been something like the GX4000 or something rubbish like that. And I say rubbish, you know, as I touched upon before, massive nostalgic memories. But I duped him into that. So I lent him that. He lent me his Mega Drive Genesis for the best part of a month or more. Oh my God, I loved it. I was playing that thing every day. It felt so cool. And also, which is the reason why I'm bringing this conversation up, or this topic up, is he had this. This is one of the things he had, which I borrowed. He had the arcade stick, a really sturdy bit of kit. And it just felt like I was playing on the arcade, like the clickiness to it. the solid kind of nature to it. It just felt like a piece of quality. I just absolutely adored it. And that day where he had to take the system back with him in the games, I was gutted. I wanted to get my own, but I couldn't. And then in '92, I got my SNES, and it wasn't until '93 so it wasn't that long later, a year or two later, that I ended up getting my own Mega Drive. And I love the Mega Drive, a system which I've largely ignored in more recent years. But as I get older, I'm really going back to it, and I am absolutely loving it. So absolutely loving the Mega Drive. Expect more to come. And you know what? To end the vid, speaking of the Sega Mega Drive, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a shout out, and I'm going to do a shout out to a guy. He doesn't know I've subscribed to him. I've not commented on any of his vids. I might do tonight actually. But it's a channel who I discovered ages ago. You know, as it stands anyway on YouTube, where on the right hand side of the screen it recommends vids. And for months and months, I've occasionally seen one of his vids appear and I've watched it. But I've just moved on to the next one. Maybe autoplay started, so I just moved on to the next one, or I went off and did something else. I never commented, I never subscribed. But what prompted me to do it the other day was I was watching a video by another Alex, Nintendo Arcade, who started to make a lot more YouTube vids, which is really good. Because obviously Alex is a nice guy, and all Alexes are nice guys. And his content is brilliant, so it's nice to see him enjoying it again, and just having fun, which is great. But Alex did a room tour vid, which is a long-running series that he's been doing, with this guy called Sega Zombie. Scott, I think, is his real name. And yeah, Sega Zombie, it's a really good channel. If you're around about my age, you love the 16-bit era, the Sega Mega Drive, if you love collecting, if you love nostalgia, if you love reminiscing, so it's all right up my street. You know, nostalgia's a massive part of my channel. So yeah, you should definitely subscribe to his channel. You should definitely watch that vid by Nintendo Arcade, Alex. They talk about so many things which resonate with me, about how with old games you can just put them on, have a quick kind of pick up and play, go for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and you've got your fix, and then you're happy. You know, not just have you had fun, but you've played it from a nostalgic perspective as well, so it's kind of tick that box. It's nothing too serious, so you're not getting stressed out, and you know, and you can get stressed out with modern games. So I really relate to a lot of what they were saying with that. So yeah, check out Sega Zombie. I think he's got around about 500 subs. I think you'll really like the channel. If you like my stuff and pick up vids and nostalgic Mega Drive vids, I think he's going for a full collection, then you'll really like it. Don't be one of those people, you know who you are, on YouTube who says, oh, there's nothing to watch anymore. There's loads of things to watch. There's channels starting all the time. You've just got to branch out. You know, you've really got to broaden your horizons and yeah, just explore new channels, meet new people. Don't be afraid to do that. Never be afraid to subscribe to someone before they subscribe to you. Don't be one of those people like, I mean, we'll do what you want, but I'm not one of those people who's like, well, I'm not going to subscribe to that channel because they haven't subscribed to me yet. Yeah, why'd you do that? Just if you like watching content, click on the subscribe button and interact. Or not if you don't want to, but don't, you know, it's that whole thing of, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face. Don't do that. Just if you like content, subscribe to it and keep it fresh on YouTube, because if all you're doing is watching the old channels, then eventually they're going to stop. Eventually, and then you'll have nothing left to watch. You've got to keep up with the Joneses, as they say, and you've got to keep up with the times. Just subscribe to channels. So there'll be a link in the description box. Sega Zombie, check his channel out. It's really, really good. And until my next vid, which will probably be my vlog, then thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.